Barbara Fisher was the life of the party, always the type to bring people together. Her house, perched on the edge of town, was known for its grand gatherings filled with music, drinks, and laughter. But after her last party, a night that should have ended with happy memories, Barbara vanished without a trace. No goodbye texts, no signs of struggle, just a house full of confused guests and eerie questions hanging in the air. At first, no one realized anything was wrong. The party had stretched late into the night, with guests coming and going. It wasn't until the next morning, when a close friend tried calling Barbara to thank her, that the unease set in. Her phone was still on the kitchen counter, untouched. Her handbag, keys, and even a half-finished glass of wine sat on the table. It was as if she had stepped out for a moment and never came back. Barbara's friends reported her missing that afternoon, and the investigation began. Officers scoured the house for clues, but nothing seemed out of place. No forced entry, no signs of violence. Her car was still in the driveway. Security cameras on nearby streets captured footage of guests arriving and leaving, but Barbara was never seen leaving her home. It was as though she had evaporated into thin air. The guests who attended the party were interviewed one by one. Most of them said Barbara had been in good spirits, chatting, dancing, and hosting as usual. But there were gaps in everyone's recollection. Some were too drunk to remember who left when. Others claimed to have seen Barbara briefly step out into the backyard alone, but couldn't recall her returning. Strangely, there were mentions of a man no one recognized, an uninvited guest, lurking around the edges of the crowd. Could he have had something to do with her disappearance? No one could remember his name or what he looked like beyond vague descriptions. Tall, dark-haired, wearing a leather jacket. As days passed without a trace of Barbara, theories began to swirl. One theory pointed to foul play, that someone at the party had harmed her. A neighbor reported hearing what sounded like an argument around midnight. Could Barbara have fought with someone? An ex-boyfriend, perhaps? Barbara's friends knew about her rocky breakup a few months earlier. Could he have shown up to the party uninvited, desperate for closure? Police investigated him, but found no solid evidence linking him to the night of the party. Then came the theory that Barbara had planned her own disappearance. Investigators uncovered recent web searches on Barbara's laptop, topics like how to disappear without being found and starting a new life abroad. She had also made several large cash withdrawals from her bank account over the past few weeks. Could the party have been a farewell? A carefully orchestrated send-off before she vanished into a new identity. Yet, if that were the case, why would she leave behind her phone, car, and personal belongings? As the investigation deepened, things became even stranger. Police discovered that Barbara had been leading a double life. She had a second social media profile under a different name, Elena Porter, where she interacted with a completely different circle of people. Some of these contacts were connected to underground parties, suspicious transactions, and even criminal groups. Had Barbara, or Elena, been involved in something dangerous that caught up with her the night of the party? In a chilling twist, a friend revealed that Barbara had confided in her about feeling like she was being watched. A week before the party, Barbara had mentioned seeing the same unfamiliar car parked outside her house several times. She had brushed it off as paranoia, but could it have been more than that? Surveillance footage from street cameras confirmed her fear. The car had been parked outside her house on the night of the party, disappearing a few hours after the guests began to leave. A breakthrough came when police traced the mysterious car to a man with a history of stalking women. He denied knowing Barbara, claiming he was only in the neighborhood to visit a friend. But with no solid evidence linking him to her disappearance, he was released, leaving investigators back at square one. Months went by, and Barbara's case grew colder. Her friends refused to believe she had left willingly. Her family clung to the hope that she was still alive. But the more they dug into her life, the more unsettling secrets they uncovered. A search of her emails revealed that Barbara had been receiving anonymous threats in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Some messages hinted at blackmail, while others contained cryptic warnings. The truth always finds a way out. Could Barbara have been hiding something dangerous? Something that cost her her freedom, or even her life? Or was she the victim of someone else's secret? Every lead pointed to a different direction. An ex-boyfriend with a grudge, a stranger with malicious intent, a secret life that finally caught up with her. And yet, none of these threads tied together neatly. Just when the investigation seemed to hit a dead end, a new piece of evidence surfaced. A guest at the party remembered seeing Barbara leave with another woman, someone they didn't recognize. The woman was described as wearing an outfit eerily similar to Barbara's and carrying a large bag. Could it have been a case of mistaken identity? Was Barbara's disappearance a result of someone else's plot? And had the wrong person vanished that night? Then came the most bizarre twist of all. A witness claimed to have seen Barbara in a nearby town weeks after her disappearance, but she was going by a different name and didn't seem to recognize him. Could Barbara have suffered from amnesia? Or was this woman just someone who looked like her, drawn into the case by coincidence? As the town struggled to make sense of Barbara's vanishing, rumors began to spread about supernatural explanations. Some whispered that Barbara's house was cursed, built on land with a dark past. Others spoke of strange occurrences in the area, lights flickering, pets disappearing, and eerie sounds in the night. Was Barbara the victim of something beyond human comprehension, caught in a web of events that defied logic? The case remained unsolved, hanging like a ghost over the town. Barbara's friends held memorials, hoping for closure, but the nagging question remained: what really happened that night? Some believed she was still alive, living under a new identity. Others feared the worst, convinced that foul play had been involved. Years later, the house where Barbara threw her final party sat abandoned. People said it felt haunted, not by spirits, but by the weight of unanswered questions. Every so often, new rumors would surface. A mysterious figure seen in the backyard at night, unexplained noises coming from the empty house. Some said Barbara's story wasn't over, that she was still out there, waiting to return. And so the mystery of Barbara Fisher lingered, an unsolved puzzle that haunted the minds of everyone who had attended that fateful party. No one knew whether Barbara had escaped to freedom, fallen victim to a sinister plot, or been swallowed by forces beyond understanding. But one thing was certain: her disappearance was not the end of her story. It was only the beginning of a mystery that would never rest.